Yes, wait, I know. ATLA's women are badass and well-written and diverse, I agree, but hear me out. Just look at this part.
Do I really have to wear this? It feels a little girly.
It's a warrior's uniform. You should be proud. The silk thread symbolizes a brave blood that flows through our veins. The gold insignia represents the honor of the warrior's heart.
Bravery and honor.
Hey, Sokka. Nice dress.
Avatar has little bits and pieces of misogyny throughout the show. Of course, most of it is intentionally placed in the plot for the characters to work through, but some of it is just plain sexism. The perfect example would be the episode The Warriors of Kyoshi, the misogyny episode. So one of the two main plots of the episode is about tackling Sokka's misogyny, which must have stemmed from his Water Tribe culture. As mentioned in the Northern Water Tribe episodes, women are not allowed to be warriors, and were only able to use their waterbending for healing. The Southern Water Tribe was definitely not as misogynistic as their sister tribe. As we see in The Puppet Master, there were Southern female benders who were masters and fighters. However, Sokka still managed to become misogynistic in less than a lifetime. The episode opens without pulling any punches, as Sokka straight up says,
Simple. Girls are better at fixing pants than guys, and guys are better at hunting and fighting and stuff like that. It's just the natural order of things.
And Katara immediately lets her stance on his misogyny be shown.
All done with your pants? And look what a great job I did.
3 other important consequences for Sokka in the episode were when he was beaten by the Kyoshi warriors when they first meet, and beaten up again, this time personally by Suki.
Let's see if you can handle this!
And finally, as a culmination, he goes, apologizes, and asks for them to teach him.
I would be honored if you would teach me.
Even if I'm a girl?
I'm sorry if I insulted you earlier. I was wrong.
Great, amazing, bravo! Succinct and effective. Nipped the misogyny bud early on so that it doesn't drag on and bog down the show. Except, then there's this scene.
Bravery and honor.
Hey, Sokka. Nice dress.
Which the dissonance this joke causes in a rather well thought out and executed episode is astounding. Cause that's a sexist joke. The absolute hold the joke around a man wearing a dress has on every form of media. It's done to death. The dress joke is also just the fundamental, ubiquitous sexist joke of, see, it's feminine. That's the punchline. Misogyny's most unfunny, overused punchline. The simple existence of femininity. I actually love this because it's the perfect condensed example within one episode of addressing an issue, but then being unable to escape your own biases as a writer. This episode was about how misogyny is bad, but then they threw in the most classic sexist joke ever. You can't make this shit up. Then Zuko says,
Nice try, Avatar, but these little girls can't save you.
when he literally grew up with the scariest girls in the Fire Nation? The scariest and strongest being his little sister? The Fire Nation itself treats its female soldiers pretty well. This may be a case of the showrunners not yet coming up with Zuko's family dynamics and Azula's team in question, but that just makes it more complicated, so let's ignore that. Double whammy from Aang's dress comment and Zuko's condensation of female warriors in an episode all about unlearning misogyny. I will say, the Zuko comment might be just attempting to further cement that misogyny is wrong. But he ends up right, because Aang does need to step in, which was the consequence for his own Aang plot, about how his want to stay on the island endangered the people there. Which would have worked better if Zuko wasn't also used to address Sokka's misogyny plot with that line, which muddles the misogyny is bad message. Not to mention in Bata of the Water Tribe, when our beloved Uncle Iroh straight up became a creep as a joke. ATLA did get better about this, and the episode itself is pretty old. And Uncle Iroh never creeped on a younger person again, and it's only brought up by the person in question when she blatantly calls him a
Great,
creep.
it's Prince Pouty. Where's your creepy grandpa?
Which makes sure both the actions of the character and the creators who had control of that character isn't swept under the rug. And we can all agree that this is way out of character for Uncle Iroh, If we had a choice in the writing process, this wouldn't be included. A round of applause for the person or people who decided that they shouldn't continue this joke. I'm calling this the author in the book concept, combining death of the author and the elephant in the room, where an author's worldview bleeds, usually subconsciously, into their work. In certain cases, this goes against the very theme of their story, which sometimes results in a disruption of immersion for readers, as they are suddenly and uncomfortably aware of both the author and the author's worldview. Disclaimer: this concept may already exist, and I just couldn't find it on Google. Most well-known, worst, and obvious example of this is Harry Potter. The Harry Potter series as a whole suffers severely from the biases of its writer. As many others more qualified than me have said, the magical world of Harry Potter's logic works in a way that validates harmful real-world stereotypes, such as goblins as a caricature of Jews, house elves as a metaphor for slaves, and werewolves as gay men. House elves in particular, we learn from other characters that it's in a house elf's nature to serve, and how it makes them happy to be slaves, and think that being paid is a grave insult. There is nothing to show that this is false, such as brainwashing or subjugation by past wizards that actually resulted in this subservience. It's just how they are. Regardless of how there's one elf that breaks the mold, and how Hermione tells everyone it's wrong, making it so that the slaves in a slavery metaphor are just naturally slaves is not a smart direction to take. Similarly, the author created a werewolf character that preys on children to turn them and groom them as his own, which is a direct homophobic rhetoric about how gay men are preying on others, particularly children. These harmful stereotypes are built into the world of Harry Potter in a way that justifies them. Additionally, most of the series is about how purebloods shouldn't subjugate muggleborns or half-bloods, and how giants, werewolves, mermaids, etc. are discriminated against. But then at the end, none of that is changed or resolved. A similar thing happens in the story One Piece. The contradiction is more focused on characterization as well as world building. Oda, the creator, made a choice to create trans women and/or cross-dressers as monstrous and predatory. These characters are called okama, a Japanese word for a gay man who is effeminate or cross-dresses. As a clarification, cross-dressing and transgender people are separate things, but it is not clear whether the okama of One Piece are one or the other, or even just a mix of both. The okama are used to portray an age-old queerphobic idea that queer people are out to force their sexuality onto others. The character they're preying on says things such as real woman, and how his experience around them was hell. This character's name is Sanji, and he's a major character in a group that symbolizes and works towards freedom. As such, transphobia doesn't fit with Sanji's character or have any point in the narrative other than being a joke. Creating trans or cross-dressing characters that act as predators and look the way they do goes against the whole theme of the story they're in. In this way, we can see that this is more indicative of the writer's flaws rather than the characters, as Sanji's transphobia isn't dealt with in a serious manner. Whereas we can see with Sokka, it's a character issue that he needs to grow from. Oda himself has written compelling and respectful queer-coded characters before and since creating the okama, so I don't believe he's actively transphobic or homophobic, but rather this is a result of the casual transphobia we've all absorbed while navigating society.
心は女です。
A friend I was messaging once asked me, how can someone be biased when they're writing about how wrong that is? Because writers don't magically become free of every bias they've learned from society when they decide to write and criticize the biases of society. Some of this may be a case of being uneducated on these issues, or it could be a case of deep-rooted societal failings, or it could even be that the creator believes in these things deep down. This is why writers aren't infallible, even in the world they themselves create.